everyone. I'm Swan Sit. I used to be the head of digital marketing and e-commerce at companies like Nike, Revlon, Estée Lauder. During the pandemic, I amassed 3 million followers in a year on Clubhouse and fell into NFTs. So now I use that audience for education and onboarding, but I really specialize in working with builders and making sure that the great technology that they're building has product market fit and impact. Now, my whole career has been talking to people about technology and adoption. So Web 1, everyone told me I'll never buy anything online. Well, I usually ask, did you Uber sometime this week? And of course, the answer is yes, you guys probably all Ubered today. Well, I'm like, well, if you took an Uber, you not only bought something online, you got into a complete stranger's car. Or if an Airbnb, you slept in a stranger's bed. Right? And then Web 2 people said, oh, I don't care about social. I don't want to know what influencers ate for breakfast. But arguably, social is what kept us connected during the pandemic, and also is a lot of the community building that we have in Web 3. And beyond that, with devices, right? People used to say, oh, I could never give up a BlackBerry. I need those buttons. Well, how's your BlackBerry doing now, or are you on a full screen device, right? So technology is only scary until people adopt it. But what I want to talk to you guys about today is how to actually, when you're building amazing technologies or even companies that use those technologies for services, how to make the normies care. One thing I did a couple months ago was I had this idea for New York Fashion Week. Huge cultural moment, tons of attention. And now, we've built metaverses for fashion before. And to be honest, they've been kind of lukewarm. So I said, if we were going to build one that actually gets people's attention, what would we do? And there are 3 insights that were really important to this. 1, no one wants pixelated fashion. I know we love our metaverses and our avatars, but fashion is about texture and movement and color and fabric. So putting it in a pixelated cartoon form doesn't resonate. Secondly, anything that sometimes goes online as an additive of a physical experience is often derivative and a second-class citizen. It's an afterthought. Oh, we've got this great event online, you're all here in person, but okay, you can just watch it on a 2D screen and maybe the sound is good or maybe it's kind of fuzzy, but we reduce it as an afterthought, which doesn't elevate the experience. And thirdly, those 2 worlds aren't connected. We're in person now, we can all meet each other at break, but we have no idea who's on the other end of that broadcast. So we said, if we're going to build a metaverse for Fashion Week, how do we do it? Well, the first is actually, we didn't lead with the technology. We said, our assertion is that if you want to come to this show, which is Vivienne Tam's Fall Winter 23 show, you're an equal. You're no less if you're in the metaverse, and we want to make those experiences in real life and online equally good, and if not, even make online even better. Now, Vivienne Tam, last season, had already put characters on her clothes. She had apes and punks all on the clothes on the runway, which is a first step, because she was starting to understand that iconography and art is the first step in a new language. So then we said, this year, let's add more. We'll do more apes and punks and doodles and cool cats. We'll put it on the clothes. But in order to connect to the community, you have to give them a way to access it. So what we did was we took the exact rendering of the fashion show. Now, Fashion Week looks awesome online, right? It's glitzy, it's got celebrities. In real life, it's like a warehouse, right? The seats are uncomfortable, it's freezing, there's no bells and whistles. So we said, let's just recreate that. We're not doing a fantastical online experience where you can fly around, because that's not what we're going for. We're going for equitable experience. So we recreated every detail in that room, from the lighting to the seating. Then, when we built the metaverse, we actually streamed that into the real world on a big LED screen in the back of the room. So now, if your details are the same, where you have the same seating, same lighting, same atmosphere, you see the real world when you're standing in the back of the room, and then it almost looks like an infinity mirror that goes into the metaverse at the end of the runway. Then we said, all right, what are the things in real life that everyone wants? How can we bring it to the metaverse? Red carpet. Both had a red carpet arrival with an interviewer and paparazzi. So when I show you some of the videos in a second, you're gonna see we're splicing in. If you're an anonymous Web3 influencer, you're equally as important as a celebrity who showed up in New York City. We also gave lots of fun bells and whistles to online that in life people didn't have. So there's some Easter eggs. If you snuck around, went backstage, you not only actually saw what was happening in a live feed in the real backstage, but we had actually all the drawings, even the model lineup and all the outfits backstage. So if you actually walked back there before the show started in the Metaverse, you would have seen what no one in the real world would see yet. You would actually see the entire outfits and model lineups. We also did something with gifting. So if you are lucky to be in the front row of a fashion show in real life, you get these incredible gift bags, products, swag. The front row of the Metaverse, those seats were assigned, just like they are in real life, but we shipped everyone the same gift bag that was a front row Metaverse prize, the same way it would be for someone in real life, and on and on and on. But the main thing we drove home is the actual show was a live feed of real models and real clothes into the Metaverse, because it's not pixelated fashion. And then when we had the after party, we had a DJ in the Metaverse that was reverse streamed back into the real world. So now you're starting to see the duality of how these things come together. From a technical perspective, you're probably all laughing because you're like, wait, that's all? But yes, that's all. Because when it comes to experiences, what matters is what you're doing and who you're doing it with. The tech is just in the background, right? No one thinks of that. So I'm going to show you a quick video to actually show you the experience because I think it comes to life. Now, again, it is rudimentary. It was on a website in 2D, and we built it in 6 weeks. So don't laugh at the experience, but think about if you're in the Metaverse and you guys were invited to sit in that front row. You got paparazzi interviews and photos. You got a gift bag in the mail. It's a whole new experience. So guys, will you throw that video up? Replicated, that's the arrival in the Metaverse on the left, arrival on the right, the same step and repeat. You have celebrities. We're splicing all of this together, which got the media impressions. We had portals. That was cool. You actually could talk between the two worlds. This is the backstage access where you see all the inspiration boards, which fashion really cares about. Even the New York skyline out the window was exactly the same. Now, on the left, you see someone watching it on the computer. On the right, it's the physical live stream. We just said it's one-to-one. So you see all the people standing in the Metaverse watching it, and on the right, it's the real world. So the colors, the chairs, kind of silly, but you know what? When you're in the real world and you don't understand, it makes a lot of sense. Those are the gift bags that people got in real life, but on the left, they were shipped out, and then we had a proof of attendance. Bunch of media coverage around it because the press actually understood what it was. So just a quick sizzle reel, right? The technology is not crazy. We used a platform called Vatum that serves the most Fortune 500 companies. Really simple 2D experience, but the one thing that we elevated that you saw a bit of was that portal, right? It was a computer in real life, actually 2 stations, but also a space in the Metaverse where you could walk up and have a conversation. And that's what we called breaking the fourth wall. Because if you're doing these 2 worlds, you want to be included, right? Community is actually the intersection of believing and caring about the same things, but interacting with other people in it. And that was the piece that's sometimes missing when we put something in the virtual world. So those portals, you saw 2 women talking. They're influencers. They have a ton of influence in the real world. They were teaching celebrities who didn't even have an idea, had never heard of Web3 about what this Metaverse world could be, but we were seeing them on both sides. And that was actually the thing that made everyone turn and look differently. They're like, wow, this always felt like a video game, but now that I'm talking to a real person on the other side, it finally makes sense. And then that last slide, I don't know if you guys noticed, but this was, again, a project that we whipped up in 6 weeks because Fashion Week doesn't wait for anyone. And we got 4.5 billion, with a B, billion media impressions organically off of this story. Because fashion and the press finally understood you could be a part of this and still be at home. So how does this apply to what you guys are building? And there's a few tenets that I like to think about when I advise companies all the way from Adidas and the Bored Apes into the Metaverse and cool cats to some of these platforms I work with. The first thing when you think about mass adoption and making normies care is don't lead with technology. Technology has to work, but if you lead with it, you know that emoji that has X's as eyes? People glaze over, they don't care. In fact, I led a gaming panel with FaZe Clan and I said every time someone says the word NFT, you have to put $10 in the swear jar. Right? So don't lead with the technology, it has to work, but to the consumer, we don't know what language a website is coded in. If I asked you your favorite kind of music, you wouldn't say MP3, you would say rock or jazz or rap. So I don't know why we continue to harp on phrases like NFT. So don't lead with the technology. In fact, hide it as much as you can because utility comes when it's easy to use and not teaching technology. Second thing is solve a problem, right? Or make it really fun. There has to be a purpose. Now, sometimes when we see cool new tech, we're like, yeah, that's great. But that's a peak and then a drop, right? If you don't have a purpose or a problem you're solving, it's not going to stick. So this is why I spend a ton of time with Web3 projects trying to find product market fit. Didn't matter if it was Web3 or even when I built blinds and shades at one of my first jobs out of college. I worked with my engineers and they're like, yeah, this automated shade is so cool. And I'm like, how many people do you think are too lazy to pull up a blind, right? And there's some, but the idea is though, if you solve a problem, you not only get people excited and interested in using your product, you bring commercial value. Some of us might have the luxury of building just for the sake of building, but I think most of us want to sell product, have an exit for our company. So you have to solve a problem. The third thing, and this is the key, because even if you get those first two parts right, the most frustrating part is this one. It's using analogies that make sense to the outside world. Because we can talk about all these things we care about, but if it's not something they can frame their thinking around, it's really difficult. So similar to how I was saying, like you kind of shake things up by joking around. If you took an Uber, you got in a stranger's car, right? I'm gonna leave you guys with one story that really drove it home for people. So I was at South by Southwest last year, and Tony Hsieh, who's the CEO of Zappos, passed away during the pandemic. So somebody had a memorial dinner of some of the business leaders and friends that he really influenced. I was sitting next to a really lovely gentleman named Phil. And Phil looks like very Miami Vice. He's in a pink jacket, a turquoise shirt. And we talked a whole evening about Tony's leadership principles and how he really changed the tone of what a leader in the modern business world should look like. Had this lovely dinner, parted ways. Now the next night was the Sandbox party with Paris Hilton DJing. Completely different vibe. The night before it was solemn, it was celebratory. The next night it was a full-on rave dance party. So I'm there with my Web3 friends and I see Phil walk in. Now, I mentioned that Phil was in pink and turquoise. He's also kind of a boomer. So he walks in with his boomer-looking friends. And he said, Swan, what are you doing here? Are you involved with all this? And you know, that's the hand motion that older people make when they don't know what something is. Are you involved in this? I was like, well, yes, actually, so Sandbox is a Metaverse company, and a Metaverse is a virtual world where you can interact with other people or things, and there's sometimes an economy. And it's like, and that little image is an avatar, which is a physical representation of who we are. So that's Snoop Dogg, that's Paris Hilton, and he chuckles and he says, Swan, he puts his hand on my shoulder and he's like, I'm the creator of Second Life. I know what an avatar is. So as I pick my foot up out of my mouth, I realize, you know what? Everything we're building, while the technology is hard and we're trying to work on adoption, the concepts and usage for the normal person is already here. We're getting it so deep into decentralization and what a metaverse is, and at the end of the day, people just want a fun experience. Thank you.